Welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I'm, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 260th episode, our returning guest is Lewis Moore. You first heard Lewis Moore on episodes 53 and 75 of the podcast. Lewis Moore is professor of history at Grand Valley State University, where he teaches African American history, sports history, and gender history. He graduated with a BA from California State University, Sacramento in 2001, an MA from the University of California, Davis in 2005, and a Ph.D. from the University of California, Davis in 2008. His research and writing examines the interconnections between race and sports. He is the author of I Fight for a Living, Boxing and the Battle for Black Manhood, 1880 to 1915, and We Will Win the Day, The Civil Rights Movement, The Black Athlete, and the Quest for Equality. In addition, he has 2 Audible lectures, African American Athletes Who Made History, and A Pastime of Their Own, The Story of Negro League Baseball. He has written for various online outlets including the New York Daily News, Vox, the Global Sports Institute, First and Penn, and the African American Intellectual Historical Society. He has appeared on NPR, MSNBC, CNN, and BBC Sports. He is the co-host of the Black Athlete podcast. His latest book, The Great Black Hope, Doug Williams, Vince Evans, and the Making of the Black Quarterback, will be released on September 24th. And now on to the show. Thanks for taking the time this evening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Well, congratulations on the new book, first of all. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. You was able to get a copy?
Yeah, I'm about 100 pages into it, actually. So I'm chugging right along. It's a really good read.
Thanks.
But yeah, I wasn't aware of this history that you chronicle here. Why was this an important subject, did you feel, to take on?
So to me, it's all my work, right? The books, whether it's I Fight for Living or We Will Win the Day, and now this, The Great Black Hope, they tell the story of American history through the window of the Black athlete. And so this one was really a story about kind of post-World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, and then the aftermath and the hopes that Black Americans had about advancement and integration. And so it's a way to tell a really cool sports story with great characters, Doug Williams and Vince Evans, and some coaches like Eddie Robinson and John McKay, but also tell the story, like in a way, tell the story about Black Americans and what they hope to get out of integration. And that is leadership positions. The idea that merit's going to matter, that if you're good enough and qualified, you'll get these opportunities. And from watching the Black quarterbacks, they realize like this isn't it, right? And so if you're watching like a great college quarterback in the 60s or 70s or even into the 80s, and then you know that he's the best and his team's the best, but yet the NFL is telling you no, you're realizing that there's a limit to how far you can go. So that's what I wanted to do, tell a story about America, civil rights, and do it via sports and the Black quarterback.
Right. And that position of the Black quarterback is a really unique case in the pantheon of football positions, right? Because you talk about how, through a lot of racism, frankly, they relegated the Black players to, like you said, kind of the muscle, the brute force positions, and not these quote unquote strategic positions like the quarterback. Can you talk a little bit about that dichotomy in the sport?
Yeah, and so it's kind of right, like you said, it's that brain and brawn thing. And for the Black athlete, they wanted him all brawn, no brain. And with the quarterback, for me, it becomes the most important position in all of sports in the 1940s, when it becomes a thinking position, when it becomes the position of leadership, of this guy has to be tough, he has to be courageous, he has to be the best leader, he has to be smart. And once that happens, they're like, yeah, this is not who we see. Black athlete is not who we see in this position. And I briefly chronicle that, but it's really telling the story. And so that's what I'm trying to get at. And so some of these stereotypes that you would say would be is like, he's not smart enough to know the offense, or he can't lead. Not necessarily that he can't lead, but his white teammates won't follow, especially the Southern white teammates. You would see stuff about, his speed. Well, why waste his speed and his athleticism at the quarterback position when I could use it at cornerback, right? So with the quarterback, he'd have to wait 3 to 5 years because all quarterbacks have to wait a long time. But there's no development here at cornerback or receiver. And so automatically, because he's fast, he'd be pushed to another position. Some stuff was about his dialect. If he came from the South, it's this belief that Southern, that's that very old racist trope about, that very minstrel Southern dialect. And would these teammates be to be able to understand it? So the black quarterback is facing all this when he's trying to make it, and so few do because of that. And that's what's so amazing about Doug and Vince. Those stereotypes are in place, and they push through it, right? Vince, to me, makes the ultimate power move when he's drafted in 1977 by the Bears, and he puts it in his contract. You can't switch my position without my permission, right?
Mm.
And so that's the kind of stuff they're going through, and they still, like I said, they still make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And this was such a dichotomy for so long because like you said, once they get to the NFL, even if they had a stellar career in college at quarterback, you're not, no, they're going to switch you to something else, right? Once you get to the league, right?
Right. And that's partly because the systems are different. So the pro stay with what they call pro style offense, which is just and I kind of explained this in the first chapter. It's just an offshoot of the T formation, but it's, there's two in the pro style. There's the quarterback is generally underneath the center, and he's got two running backs behind him, and then he's got his receivers and his tight ends. Whereas the college game starts out that way, but gets more innovated, just because college coaches got to be innovative, they got to be different. And there's all kinds of systems in there. And when they had the quarterback in the college, they're really using them for running. They're using them in the veer or stuff like the wishbone or triple option, stuff that they could take advantage of his athleticism, or even stuff like the wing T where they're rolling out. In the pros, though, they're looking at this and say, this is not going to work. We're not even going to try this. You got to fit our mold. But they weren't not necessarily they weren't willing to even have the patience to work with these guys though, too. And that's the frustrating part, right? Because you know that they're good. They win a lot of games in college, but the moment the pros get them, they're like, we're not even going to spend time with you, right? And so that's why Doug and Vince, the story is so powerful because the pros actually say, you know what? We'll spend time with you. Now, the reason why they spent time with Doug is because his college coach knew all this and said, I'm going to create a system, my very own system that's going to be able to get a black quarterback to the pros. He's going to be so good they can't say no. So his coach, Eddie Robinson at Graham, was like, okay, these quarterbacks, they got to be tall. So all his quarterbacks were 6'4". They got to throw the ball. So he designs his offense to throw the ball. They can't run because if they run, the NFL is going to make him a different receiver or cornerback. And so he tells his quarterbacks to stay in the pocket. Whereas Vince, his coaches weren't like that. They just wanted to win college football games. And Vince had to make himself into a pro quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you talk about the places that some of these guys come from. And I mean, you talk about getting it out of the mud. Literally, they're making, football fields with their bare hands when, the white power structure isn't accommodating to that. And separate is definitely not equal in this case. So, I feel like that makes them even tougher. They have to be tougher just to get to where they're at, right? Because these facilities where they're coming from just don't exist. So,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Like Doug Williams, when he's growing up, it's this community called Cheneyville, right? It's a black community. It's not really on the map. And they're very independent, and they love their independence, right? They're about land ownership, and the city though, because of, as you say, separate and unequal, there's no services there for a long time. So Doug's not growing up with services. There's gravel roads. And he, right, when he reflects, he kind of reflects it in a positive way. Well, this is made me tougher, but it also developed my arm through a lot of rocks, right? And my shoulders are strong because I had to take the, slot buckets out and dump them out of the outhouse, kind of stuff like that. But that's the poverty they grew up in, and that's the world they they had to face, and the KKK was there. Whereas Vince grows up in the city of Greensboro. It's the hub of the civil rights movement. It's where the sit-ins start. It's a thriving. It has a lot of poverty, but it also has a thriving Black middle class community, which he's part of. And so his story is a little bit different. His story is one of people in his community trying to integrate into society, constantly being told no, but eventually they win when the federal courts say, yeah, school systems have to integrate. So Vince is that guy on the bus. He's actually, it's Remember the Titans, right? Without being Remember the Titans. He's getting bused into a previously predominantly white school where he now becomes the quarterback.
Right. And I think it's also, the bar, another way the bar is set even higher is, like, you had a quote in the book about how you're allowed one mistake. You know what I mean? And there's so many examples in sports and in life and politics of people, white men mostly, failing upwards. And that never seems to happen, obviously, in this case. So I mean, it was like, you have one bad game, or you don't, that season opener doesn't go the way you want it to. It's you might not get another shot. So you really have to, like, be pretty on the nose all the time, right?
Yeah, that quote is one of my favorites. Jim Murray, so LA Times writer. I believe it's being a black quarterback is like being a member of the bomb squad. You get one mistake, right, and it's so true, because the moment you make a mistake, they're calling for you, right? There's a white backup waiting. People are tired of this already. Like, even before you get on, there's fans that like you, but your coach is getting hate mail already, and so the mistake gives them the excuse to give you a quick hook.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But looking forward, I don't know. I haven't got to the end of your book yet, but I mean, these problems that these pioneers that you write about were facing are still being faced today, I feel. And I don't know if you get into this in the book, but the idea of the black head coach too in the NFL, kind of the similar, I guess, issue with the black quarterback, in that it's the intellect, the leader, what I mean, like, calling the shots role that, you're not, like, it's like the assistant coach is, like, I think you said, another name for assistant coach is recruiter, right? That's
Yeah, especially at the college level. Yeah.
yeah, at the college level, right? But I mean, at all levels of sports, it's been a battle. I don't know what the percentages are now, but they can't be great, I wouldn't imagine, for head coaches. So
Right. No, especially at the college level, at the big time college level, it's not great. At the pros, it's getting better. I think
mhm.
there might be six now. A couple of years ago, there were one, but the guys who are getting hired, they're not offensive guys. They're not the guys who we call offensive geniuses, right? They're the defensive guys who are seen as aggressive. Not to say they're not seen as thinkers or smart, but it's all aggressive, right? Whereas the offensive guys today in the NFL are the guys who are seen as geniuses. And
Mhm.
those guys aren't getting a shot. So Byron Leftwich is the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they won the Super Bowl. Nothing, no shot. Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for Kansas City Chiefs when they won the Super Bowl, no shot. And so that's the problem today. Like, the positions, the play callers that are seen are geniuses aren't the black guys. And it's kind of like what the quarterbacks went through.
Yeah, and even the problem that the quarterbacks are facing didn't really go away. I mean, fast forward, what, 30 years, and then you still got Rush Limbaugh's famous rant about who was he going
Donovan McNabb essentially said the only reason people care about him because he's black, right? Like,
I've listened to all of you guys, actually, and I think the sum total of what you're all saying is that Donovan McNabb is regressing. He's going backwards. I'm sorry to say this, I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. We're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. I think there was a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of this team that he really didn't deserve. The defense carried this team, I think.
Rush, somebody went to those championship games. Somebody went to those Pro Bowls. Somebody made those plays that I saw running down the field, doing it with his legs, doing it it with his arm. He has been a very effective quarterback for this football team over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but
different than what we see right now. And they didn't have any more talent then.
Oh, yeah,
than
they did
have
on
now.
defense. On defense, they
On
did.
defense, they did. I'm talking about offensive side of the ball.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. I think he got a lot of credit for the defensive side of the ball winning games for this team.
But I'll tell you what, I'll say it even more strongly, Tom. When they're winning, nobody makes more plays
than Donovan McNabb.
And with his arm than Donovan McNabb.
Yeah.
That guy is really one of the best in the league at making plays. But making plays does not win championships. Running the offense does. So at some point, I think
Gotta run
Floyd
the offense.
Detmer looks like a better option because he'll go in there, drop back, and throw the ball correctly.
Isn't it odd that last year with the broken leg, I know it was Arizona, but the one game he was in the pie, he looked great.
He had to run that off.
So, Rush, once you make that investment, though, once you make that investment in him, that's a done deal.
I'm saying it's a good investment. Don't misunderstand. I just don't think he's as good as everybody said he has been.
Rush has a point. Well, he certainly hasn't matured.
People are overhyping him because he's black. He's not that good. I believe that was the meaning of what he was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So that the story continues, of course. But yeah, how did these guys do in their careers, and what kind of progress did they end up making?
So Doug, ultimate goal. I mean, he climbs the mountain, he wins the Super Bowl, and is the hero, and many consider him the Jackie Robinson of football, just because. Now, he's not the first black football player, obviously, but because of that quarterbacking is so important. But it's up and down. He has some really good years in Tampa Bay, kind of has some struggles, but the struggles are magnified because he's black. Vince Evans, to be honest, he could have been good, could have been great, never got the opportunity. But I think the key about Vince Evans is he's the blueprint of what we see today. He's the blueprint of the dual threat quarterback. And he's so important because it's the first time that coaches thought about, well, you know what, maybe we could use this speed, this arm, and try to figure out how to make this work. Now, it doesn't really work. It takes some time in Chicago, and they don't have time to make it work. But I think the legacy for Vince is not necessarily in the stats or in the Super Bowl rings, which he doesn't win, but it's in the fact that he's the modern quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Right. I thought it was kind of funny going back a little bit in the story, but I forget who you were writing about, but you said that they did like a pump fake or something, and that was considered quote unquote hot dogging at the time.
Yeah. They did not like that Doug Williams in that game, September 30th, pump fake the quarterback, made him jump, and then he threw a touchdown. Yeah. No, and you weren't supposed to do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's so funny that was like a scandal at the time, because that seems like such a normal thing that would happen, during a game now.
Yes. Sideline coach wasn't happy.
Right, definitely. Well, yeah. So what other stories are you working on now that you've written this book? I know this was a long time coming for you. You said I saw on Twitter you said you wrote most of it before you even had your proposal together. So, what were you writing about next?
Man, I'm just trying to sell this book, and I think if I find success with this book, then I can think about the next book, right? Like I want to, you know what I mean? But I doubt it. I don't want to say I'll do something and then all of a sudden some opportunity comes out of this, right? But I'll probably, if nothing comes out of this, is people aren't like, hey, can you write another football book? Then I'll probably do something with Negro League baseball. Which is going to take a long time because there's a lot of stuff to research and figure out the story.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, no, I saw, I forget how long ago it was a couple months, I think, where they finally integrated all the stats into the pantheon of MLB statistics, and several, it was funny because most of them were, I think Josh Gibson, that was the new home run king. And then, but it was funny because I think some people's statistics actually went down because they got struck out more before they came to the Major League Baseball, and it's like they had to include the stats from before, and it was like,
I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Some people actually may have like gone down a little bit just because like the pitching or whatever was so good, and
right. That's funny. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's cool. Yeah, no, I live just outside of Indianapolis, and I know there was a team here, the Indianapolis Clowns.
Right.
and I've seen some throwback jerseys with them, but that's cool. Yeah, no, I would definitely be interested in that. But well,
Yeah, that's ways away, right? Ways away. Yeah.
cool. So are you started the new school year yet? Everything?
Yep, yep. 4 weeks is our fourth week. So yeah, 4 weeks in. 4 weeks in. So what, about a quarter done already?
Oh wow.
Done
Okay.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What classes are you teaching this year?
I have a civil rights class, sports history class.
Oh, sports history. Gotcha. Cool. What years do you cover in sports history?
So really it's thematic and it's a lot of it like, so I do, I'm trying to think, like 7 themes. So the first half of the class is kind of like ginger. So like, and so the first couple weeks I'm talking about like youth sports, right? And then now I'm on manhood and college football, and then we'll do women athletes and what goes along with that. And
Hmm.
then after the midterm, we'll do like race and ethnicity. So a couple weeks on the white athlete, week on Native American in sport, a couple weeks on the black athlete, and then Mexican American athlete. So just
Hmm.
and then each one, since they're thematic, I start kind of at the beginning and try to tell a quick story. So
Cool. It's interesting you mention youth sports because I was just reading about the pipeline of football from youth to pros is really breaking down in a lot of places because parents are just so concerned about the concussion issue. And it almost seems like to me that eventually it's going to turn into what boxing is. It's going to turn into, whoever doesn't have, with the least to lose in society is going to be the ones that, you know what I mean, that participate in it, and people that, can are going to put their kids in whatever lacrosse or whatever instead because they're worried about concussions. And then, so, there's going to be even more of it'll just be interesting to see how that comes to fruition. Because I mean, I know a lot of people of my friends who have kids who won't let their kids play football for that reason. So,
I can see it. I mean, but we love football, so we'll see. There'll always
but
be
yeah,
people
that's
who
right.
play. Yeah, but we love football.
That's the biggest sport for sure at this.
Right.
But yeah, they have those helmets though, right? That prevent the concussions that they use in practice, I guess, but they don't use in the games. Is that right?
Guardian caps. Yeah, I think a few players are starting to wear them in games, which is pretty smart. But yeah, they wear them in practice all the time.
I see. But it's just some of the players that have them during the games, right?
Right. Just very like a handful. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. Yeah. Everyone should read this book. I'm excited to finish it here. But yeah, one thing I know I was going to ask you was what music have you been listening to lately?
So like today I worked out and I was listening to The Chronic. So I'm just, I don't like anything new. I generally listen to stuff from when I was younger. And so today just happened to be The Chronic. Working out. It's good. It's pretty good. It's a good album to work out to, right?
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you like instrumental music at all, but there's this band from England called OMA, and they do they're a live band, and they do covers, like they do like full album covers of hip hop albums, and they do The Chronic, or actually no, I'm sorry, they do 2001, and then they also do Illmatic, and they do a lot of MF Doom tracks. So if
I'll have to check that out. OMA.
OMA, yeah, you should.
Yeah, I'll check
They
that
have a
out.
bunch of live mixes. You should check out. I think you'd really dig it. So
Oh, thank you. I'll
yeah,
check that out.
yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. So well, I wish you luck with selling this book. Everyone should buy 10 copies at least for Christmas coming up. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
well, great. Well, thanks for coming back again. It's been a long time since we talked last, but I'm glad to have you back on, and I've been enjoying the book. So
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate having me.
well, thanks for coming on tonight, and have a good rest of your night.
All right, you too.
Bye bye.
You're part of this wind.